Well, good morning or good afternoon, as the case may be, depending on where you may be, anywhere throughout the American Cotton Belt, as you are tuning into this, the world-famous Cotton Companion podcast. We hope that you are having a good one. We hope that you are having a good harvest season out there. This is, we could call this episode the Cotton Companion Spooktacular Halloween. I don't know, I'm trying to come up with some sort of cotton Halloween pun, and nothing is coming to me. So it's been that type of week. We're at the end of the week here, at the end of a month, at the end of a harvest month, the end of October. And regardless, we hope that things are going well for you out there, whether you are in the Valley in California or the Mississippi Delta or any point in between or around the Cotton Belt. We welcome you. I am joined today, as always, by my partner in crime, Cotton Grower Senior Editor, Mr. Jim Steadman. Howdy, Jim.
Beck, how are you doing today? Hello, everybody.
Yeah, things are good here in the office. It's been kind of a gloomy, or not gloomy, but just kind of gray few days here in Memphis, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but we hope that you're not getting too much rain out there in the Mid-South as you're just trying to get this crop in. Before we get into all that, though, I want to take a brief moment here and thank our sponsor, the fine folks at Phytogen.
Phytogen is pleased to sponsor the Cotton Companion, bringing you the latest news to help you thrive all season long.
Okay, yes, we do appreciate our sponsors at Phytogen. I've also been made aware that I was mispronouncing Phytogen's new corporate parent company name, as I was saying Corteva last time on the podcast. It's actually Corteva, new name out there, and as per usual, I butcher my first attempt. My first attempt to get that right. It's Corteva, which is the new corporate home of brands that you would be familiar with, like Phytogen and Enlist. Formerly Dow is now Corteva after the merger of Dow and DuPont. So, anyhow, now that I've stumbled all over that.
Yeah, it's easy to keep up with all the mergers. What's difficult is the pronunciations of some of the new names.
There you go.
You know, but hey, we know. We know.
We do know. We
For
do.
sure.
Pronunciation is sometimes easier than the spelling. A lot of these guys come up with some very creative spelling of some of these proper nouns. But that's a whole nother story. Anyhow, again, we know that a lot of you are in the midst of harvest season. We hope that you are listening to us. We hope that we're riding along with you in the cab with that picker or stripper, and we hope that you are seeing some big old numbers on those yield monitors. As I said, here in the Mid-South, it feels like it just won't quit raining. Cold and gray out there. We hope that here soon you all have some nice, dry, warm conditions as you are bringing that crop in. We have a great episode in store for you today, I promise you. We are going to be, as always, we're going to start by reviewing the ag news headlines of the past couple of weeks. Jim is going to lead us in that discussion, as he always does. And then we're going to hear from a great friend of Cotton Grower, someone who you may remember hearing on this podcast before. That is our man in the Southeast, Dr. Don Shirley, a longtime cotton market analyst. I believe he spent much of his career with University of Georgia Extension. That's correct, right, Jim?
Absolutely.
And Don has always been great to us, and I believe he and Jim talked about a number of things, but I know that y'all touched on Michael and its impact, as Don's kind of on the ground in the middle of that in Southwest Georgia. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Don's based in Tifton and was sort of on the edge of a lot of the damage from Hurricane Michael. And we talked about that in the interview. And we'll let him go into more detail, because he's the feet on the ground and the eyes down there, and can give you a much better picture of what the situation looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, and we appreciate him taking time to talk to us. So we're gonna have that interview. After that, we are going to do a sort of a new element in this new version of the Cotton Companion podcast that we're just rolling out this year. And that is our last segment of the day. We're going to call it one big thing, where we focus on sort of a bigger development that's gone on in our industry, a hot button topic of the time. For this week, we're just going to do a discussion of crop progress, which I know is first and foremost on a lot of y'all's minds out there as you're doing your annual race against time to get this crop in before conditions get too bad. We know, as the Starks tell us, that winter is coming, and I know that y'all are ready to put this thing to bed. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We will dive right in with Jim here for our news segment.
Okay, thank you, Beck. News segment, just a couple of items to talk about or to discuss in this episode. Simply because harvest is sort of taking priority, as is obviously, unfortunately, in the Southeast, still trying to figure out exactly the extent of the damage from Hurricane Michael. Weather is going to be an issue, and that's ever changing depending on the location. But two items that came out over the last within the last week that I think are of importance to the cotton industry. First one comes from USDA. In an October 19th announcement, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue proclaimed, quote, that U.S. cotton is free of the devastating pink bollworm after more than 100 years. He said the bollworm, sort of recapped that the bollworm has cost U.S. producers tens of millions of dollars in yearly control costs and yield losses, and that thanks to rigorous control and regulatory activities carried out by USDA, state departments of agriculture, the U.S. cotton industry, and growers, the pink bollworm has been eliminated from all cotton-producing areas in the continental U.S. So as a result of that, USDA has lifted the domestic quarantine for pink bollworm that basically removes restrictions on domestic and international movement of U.S. cotton from all areas of the cotton belt. Perdue was very upfront in noting that cotton growers were critical to this success. Basically, when you go back and think about the coordinated multi-state program that they've been working under for eradication of pink bollworm, and basically covering about 80% of the program's cost. That effort, he said, demonstrated the value of partnership, investment, and putting research close to and beside the farmers we serve. Now, just as a quick background, for those of you in the U.S., in the Cotton Belt, who have never dealt with pink bollworm, USDA says the pest was first detected in Texas in 1917. And by the mid-1950s, it had spread to surrounding states, eventually reaching California in 1963. In 1955, the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, also known as APHIS, established domestic pink bollworm regulations, and at the height of the program, there were 10 cotton-producing states were quarantined for this pest. My first exposure to pink bollworm was in Arizona, was down in the lower southwest area, but when you look at the original quarantine on this, we're talking Arizona, Arkansas, California, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Nevada, Mississippi, and Missouri were all part of the original quarantine. By 2003, only, as I said, Arizona, California, New Mexico, and parts of Texas were under regulation. So kudos to the folks who've been working on this program. It has involved, basically over the past 20 plus years, it's involved the introduction and use of transgenic cotton, some researchers using insect pheromones to disrupt mating cycles, releasing sterile insects to help prevent reproduction, and a whole lot of field survey work has been done. So it's nice to see, nice to get that report out of USDA, and hope that will solve some things and some issues, particularly down in that lower southwest area.
Yeah, briefly, I'll say here, we talk so much about, and we hear so much from smart folks throughout the cotton industry who say, oh, we should be telling cotton story more. We should do a better job of telling our story because we've got such a good story to tell. Anytime we're talking about an eradication project that has overwhelming success like this, like we are, celebrating right now, I would love for someone out there, be it USDA, or I don't even know if you could even do this, if you could quantify the number of pesticide sprays that have been saved in eradicating a pest like this, or boll weevil eradication being the primary example of something like that.
Right.
When you talk about transgenic seed and cotton and also the eradication efforts of these things, just ungodly amounts of pesticides that did not get sprayed across this country because smart people put their minds to getting rid of these pests. Anyhow, it is another story that deserves telling when you're talking about how environmentally sound cotton production is today. But it would be so hard to say, oh well, we saved X amount of sprays, because how do you quantify something that didn't happen?
Right.
But anyhow.
That's for smarter people than us.
Yeah, exactly. So all I can do is applaud everybody who was involved in this great program to eradicate this pink bollworm.
Well, this apparently is becoming the research report version of news, just because our second story comes out of Texas A&M. Because thanks to the Texas A&M AgriLife Research, and also with working hand in hand with Cotton Incorporated, we now have cottonseed that can serve as a source of protein to millions of people. It is now one step closer to reality, because within the last week and a half, A&M received word that their petition, and this is the fancy, in quotes. You can't see me doing the air quotes here on the microphone. Received word that their petition for determination of non-regulated status for ultra-low gossypol cottonseed, and that's an awful long title, has been approved by USDA's APHIS group again. The project was funded by Cotton Incorporated, developed a transgenic cotton plant with ultra-low gossypol levels in the seed that maintains normal plant-protecting gossypol levels in the rest of the plant. Now, Dr. Cater Hake at Cotton Incorporated, who heads up their research programs, basically said gossypol suppression in cottonseed has been part of our funded research portfolio for more than 30 years. It took time to tap the innate protein potential in the seed, time for the right technologies to develop, and time for the right research team to come along. Now, the story behind this is Dr. Raythor joined Texas A&M in 1995. And when he joined the program, he had never seen cotton growing in a field prior to coming to Texas. He has spent the last 23 years working to create the cotton plants to produce the seeds containing gossypol levels well below what U.S. Food and Drug Administration considers safe levels, while maintaining normal levels of the in-plant toxin in the foliage, floral parts, boll, rind, and roots. Going on, says gossypol is useful to cotton plants for defense against insects and pathogens, but it is toxic to humans and other animals. So currently, cottonseed containing gossypol, what we're used to seeing in the market right now, is used primarily as ruminant animal feed, either as whole seed or cottonseed meal after oil extraction. So basically, long story short on this, thanks to this new development, more than 500 million people across the world may now have access to a new form of protein, and farmers could potentially be able to earn a little bit better living off of the product. The product can also be important from the standpoint of sustainability, because now farmers will be able to produce fiber, feed, and food from the same crop. So next steps in this, now that it's been approved by USDA, the next major effort will be demonstrating the value-added potential of the technology. They're going to have to produce enough of this ultra-low gossypol seed for commercial scale production run at a cottonseed oil mill, and that's likely to take a couple of years. Then agreements must be secured with the patent holders of several technologies that were used to develop this product, and then find seed companies willing to market the trait and make it available to cotton growers worldwide. So it's a very important step forward, because what it does, it creates a whole new market for cottonseed that currently doesn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking back on all of the nice cottonseed oil that I used to get from our friends at the Cotton Board. For that once a year when I would cook something for someone, I would break out my cottonseed oil. So I look forward to having more of that around, because it certainly was delicious. It was good to use.
Absolutely. Well, this will be, I think, as the research team said, you'll now be able to take this ultra-low gossypol seed and grind it into meal, which can be used for nutrition aspects, and it's going to be particularly important, I think, over in some developing countries. Said it can be toasted and used and just eaten as a peanut.
Yeah.
Something. So there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of work yet to do. But again, it's another important development for this market because it gives us another possibility for have a product to move into areas where we currently don't have a product.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And then our last item, again, we're going to go back and recap just because it's a very important subject at this point. It's just sort of a quick reminder that December 7th, even though we're sitting here right toward the end of October, December 7th is a deadline for landowners and producers on farms with generic base acres to make the decisions they need to make as part of that seed cotton ARC PLC implementation for the 2018 crop year. We know that there are a number of universities and associations that are setting up workshops right now. Some have already been conducted. Others are scheduled for the next several weeks in other markets. And it's important to make sure that all growers and landowners meet that deadline. Now, as Beck said, later in this podcast, we're going to have an interview with Dr. Don Shirley, where he and I will discuss in more detail some of the options that are available to growers, and really and truly with considering some of the current situations in the market, why one program may have advantages over the other in the short run.
Yeah, very good. And again, I know that that kind of dovetails nicely with the interview that you had with Dr. Don Shirley, which we are going to present here shortly. Before we get there, though, I'd like to take a minute to hear from our sponsors from Phytogen. We had we want to bring you this message from Phytogen. Our custom content editor, Robin Sickberg, had the chance recently to sit down with a Phytogen cotton development specialist. I believe it's our buddy Dr. Ken Leger, who she spoke with, and we are happy to hear from them right now.
Welcome to the Cotton Companion. I'm Robin Sittberg, a custom content editor with Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. My guest on this program today is Ken Leger, cotton development specialist with Phytogen. Ken, the last time we visited, we talked about some great varieties for West Texas. I know all of those varieties have the W3FE trait package. What does the W3FE stand for, and how does this benefit growers?
W3FE stands for Y Strike 3 Flex Enlist. The Y Strike 3 portion is our 3-gene BT protein insect protection. The Y Strike 3 essentially boosts protection against cotton bollworm and provides the grower with an additional tool for insect resistance management. The Enlist Weed Control System is a new technology that allows the grower to apply over the top 2,4-D choline in the brand names Enlist 1, which is a standalone product, or Enlist Duo, which is a premix of 2,4-D choline and glyphosate. These tools, along with some tank mix partners like glufosinate in the case of Enlist 1, and lots of other herbicides on enlisttankmix.com, allows the grower a lot of flexibility and a lot of strategies to fight some tough-to-control weeds.
What was the experience of growers in your area with the Enlist Weed Control System?
Overall, the control of weeds was excellent. When growers choose the Enlist Weed Control System, they're trying to control weeds. That's the whole essence of the system. And by and large, we've had great feedback from growers saying that the weed control from the Enlist Weed Control System really exceeded their expectations. They found it real easy to use. They found it real easy to clean out a tank. But I want to emphasize the importance of following the label. It's always important to follow the label, but in these new technologies, it is essential that every aspect of that label is followed and all the application recommendations follow to a T for successful Enlist Weed Control System implementation.
Okay. What do you suggest growers do to wrap up the harvest and begin planning for next year?
Well, certainly this time of year is a great time of year to look at your gen recaps, look at the yields of the different varieties that you grew, look at the quality, and try to tie back some cultural practices, or at least some environmental conditions that maybe affected both yield and quality. This is also a great time of year to do the soil sampling for nematodes. During the fall of the year is the great time to do that. And of course, with our phytogen breeding traits, we have root knot nematode resistance in many of our new W3FE varieties that reduces populations up to 90%. But certainly as you look and maybe you've experienced some bacterial blight, or maybe you've had some verticillium wilt or other pests, look at those fields and determine what your major problems are, and then choose a variety with genetic resistance or tolerances to those particular pests. I'll point out that all of our W3FE varieties are bacterial blight resistance, and a lot of them have root knot nematode resistance, verticillium wilt tolerance, or sometimes both.
Okay. Lastly, where do you suggest growers go to get more information on phytogen?
Well, probably the best place they can go is call their local territory manager, but you can also call your local cotton development specialist, or you can simply go to phytogen.com for a lot of information.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Robin and Phytogen, Dr. Ken Leger, for that. We are going to keep this thing rolling along here, and I want to set up our interview that Jim conducted, I believe it was just yesterday, with our guy, Dr. Don Shirley. Again, we're going to try to make this feature, or rather a feature of every episode, where we are discussing with some of these smart folks, these cotton analysts, market analysts, in the segment that we will call our Market Minute. Although, as I understand it, this interview is actually pushing around 15 minutes, so slightly more than a minute. But
I don't think you could ever get an economist to say anything in a minute.
In a minute, yeah, absolutely not. It's just too complex, and it's interesting, and we wouldn't want to do that. So we're happy that Dr. Shirley talked to us for about 15 minutes here. I believe this interview is filled to the brim with good stuff. So we send you now to this insightful interview that Jim conducted with Dr. Don Shirley.
Well, welcome back to the Cotton Companion. We're joined now by Dr. Don Shirley, who's Professor Emeritus of Cotton Economics at the University of Georgia in Tifton. Don, thanks for joining us again on the Cotton Companion. You've joined us before. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you, Jim. It's a great honor. Thank you for having me.
All right. I think everybody over the last several weeks have seen the pictures and read the news reports of the level of damage and devastation that Hurricane Michael brought, not only to the Florida Panhandle, but certainly up into that nice sweet spot of cotton production and peanut production and everything else in South Georgia. And you, sitting there in Tifton, were at essentially ground zero for a lot of this. Can you give us a quick overview of that situation and kind of where things stand after a couple weeks?
Yeah, well, the hurricane, the effects of the hurricane came up through, first of all, the southwest corner of the state. For your listeners, that would be the area around Bainbridge and Donaldsonville, Blakely, Camilla, that area down in that area. That got the brunt, the strongest effects from the hurricane. And unfortunately, Jim, that is certainly one of our most productive areas. The production down there is largely irrigated. Those are large farms, and that would be one of the more productive, if not the most productive, at least in terms of yields, from our cotton in the state. Once the storm came across the southwest corner, it kind of continued to go north and kind of stay on the western side of Tifton, up through Macon, Tifton, and if you look at Interstate 75, I think Interstate 75 was pretty much the eastern boundary of most of the damage. Not to say that other farms didn't have it, but the storm kind of moved west of Tifton and then turned and went across the middle part of the state. Of course, by that time it had weakened some, and the winds were not as strong, but it continued kind of in a northeastern pattern, and then went across the northeast side of our cotton production, which would be south of the Augusta area, that area around Waynesboro and that area down in there, and then continued on across the Carolinas. So most of the damage, Jim, that I have seen, and this is based on reports from farmers and pictures that they have sent us, as well as me doing my own traveling around different areas. Some of the cotton in that far southwest corner that I talked about that had the heaviest brunt of this, that cotton's completely gone. We had some fields down there that were completely stripped. They're a 90% loss. Most of the state, based on what I have seen, the losses are somewhere in the 30 to 50% category. Now, obviously, some much more than that, as I mentioned, and some a little bit less than that. Some farmers were lucky in the sense that they had feared for the worst, and the storm, like I said, passed west of a lot of our area, and so the damage luckily was less than most people feared. But I tell you the real sad part about this, and I had questioned NASA's numbers all along for Georgia in terms of our state average yield. A lot of our farmers were looking at a record crop, and we're 15 to 1,800 pounds on irrigated, and 2 bales or 2 bales plus 1,000 to 1,200 pounds on non-irrigated, and it just overnight in just a matter of hours wiped it completely out. So that's kind of an assessment. Again, some farmers lost a lot, almost everything in terms of their cotton crop. Others fared better, but like I said, on average, I think around 30 to 50% loss for most producers. Some more than that, some less.
Sure, and as we realize, particularly in your area, cotton growers are often involved with other crops like peanuts and pecans, and I understand there was quite a bit of damage, particularly on the pecan industry.
Yes, the pecan industry is just this. Cotton's bad enough. The cotton losses are tremendous, but if a farmer can survive that financially, and that's a big if right now. If cotton production can survive that financially, you can come back and plant cotton next year. But pecans, you've lost generations of production and effort and work, and some of these trees that have been destroyed, 20, 30, 40 years old, and you just don't replace that. So it's going to impact our pecan industry for years and years to come.
Well, it's heartbreaking. Anytime a storm like this or a situation like this comes across anywhere, you're obviously as deeply involved in the cotton industry as we are. We all hurt. It just makes our hearts hurt on that. But I appreciate that report on that. Let's shift gears just a little bit, because I noticed you on Facebook late last week, you had posted something about the seed cotton program, and we know the decision deadline for growers to decide whether they're going to do the PLC or the ARC program on this is coming up on December 7th.
Right.
I think everything that we have seen initially about the program is that the PLC might be the way to go, but you're kind of hinting here that maybe after some of the situations here of the last couple of weeks, particularly maybe in your area, the ARC may be the better option. Can you kind of explain that and tell me why you're thinking that way?
Yes, and I do appreciate you asking that. To be bluntly honest with you, it was just something that just all of a sudden popped in my brain, and I thought that this is going to have an impact. And here's kind of the bottom, and this is sort of the bottom line. from day one, when it was announced that we were going to have a seed cotton program and that seed cotton would be eligible as a covered commodity for ARC and PLC, initially I never saw anything. ARC was not even mentioned in the playbook. Everybody sort of was assuming that PLC was the way to go, and most people that I've talked with and the people that have crunched some numbers looking at ARC versus PLC, the sentiment within the industry still seems to be that PLC is the way to go, and I don't argue that. Okay, I think that's probably correct, but what we have to remember is this December 7th deadline applies to just the 2018 crop year. And both the House and Senate versions of a new farm bill, if and when we ever get one passed, calls for producers to be able to make another ARC or PLC decision effective with the 2019 crop year that'll carry through the remainder of a new farm bill. So our understanding is that this December 7th deadline is for the 2018 crop only, and then you'll come back and make another decision effective with the new farm bill. So when this hurricane moves through and caused so much in the way of losses, my thought was, well, under an ARC program, you're going to be comparing actual seed cotton county revenue for 2018 to a benchmark revenue that'll be based on the previous 5 years, 13 through 17. Well, my gosh, our yields have been hurt so bad. My thought was, particularly in these heaviest hit counties, that our seed cotton revenue that would be calculated for an ARC for 2018 is going to be significantly less than our average over the previous 5 years, 13 through 17. And so that ARC might actually kick in and might actually be better just for the 2018 situation, that you could elect ARC and then come back in a new farm bill and make your other election effective for the new farm bill. So, I'm not saying it's for everybody, and I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying in these counties that have been hit so hard, and if we have time, we can talk about the numbers I've crunched so far. Mm-hmm. If based on these counties that were hit so hard, maybe ARC could be the way to go for 18 versus PLC. I tell you, one of the risks in this, though, and I've talked with National Cotton Council leadership about this. If you're going to elect ARC for 18, we are certainly thinking and hoping that we will have another election opportunity effective with next crop year. Even if the current farm bill gets extended for another year. And, every day that goes on, that seems more and more likely. Even under an extension of the current farm bill, our cotton industry leadership is telling me that they would certainly push for and hope that the farmer would still be able to make that other election effective for the 19 crop.
Okay, that's I think would be obviously a true benefit to the industry at this point, and maybe for once a delay in a farm bill might actually turn out to be a good thing.
Well, but I tell you, based on the numbers that I have crunched so far, and I was frankly a little surprised by this. You got to remember, first of all, that, like I said in our opening, a lot of our producers were looking at a record crop, much above what they would get on average over the years. And so even if a crop had, say, a 30 to 50% loss, which I said was probably the average out there. In some cases, all you're doing is getting down to something closer to average. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, the losses were devastating, but looking at it from an ARC standpoint, all you did was knock the record out and get your actual yield down less than average for sure, but maybe not enough to make ARC work kind of on average, because you got to remember ARC has what I call a 14% deductible in it. We're going to go back and look at the previous 5 years, Olympic average revenue for the previous 5 years, and then we're going to knock 14% off of that. So your ARC guarantee is 86% of your 5-year Olympic average. So you got a 14% deductible right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you consider the fact that we had record yields, even if you have a 30 to 50% loss, that hurts tremendously. But in making the comparison, in some cases, that's going to be pretty close to making ARC work or not work, because the numbers are going to be pretty close. But in these counties where we had a tremendous loss, the heaviest counties, then I think ARC is probably going to be the way to go. But I've not finished the numbers yet. But I just wanted to let people know that, and that this is something that we're looking at. It's something that might need to be worth considering. And as soon as I can work up and finish crunching numbers on my representative counties here, then I'm going to get that out there. So hopefully people will be looking for that. Hopefully that'll be beneficial to them.
Good. Now, I've noticed that a number of state extension groups and other cotton organizations have either scheduled or have been conducting workshops for growers to help them in this decision-making process before the December deadline. Do you have anything that you've already done in Georgia, or are you planning to put something together here over the course of the next month?
Georgia had meetings back in September.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we did, Jim, I want to say 5 or 6 meetings around the state that were co-presented and co-organized by University of Georgia Extension and our FSA offices.
Mm-hmm.
And we did those back in September, and those were informational type meetings about the seed cotton program and about the decisions that had to be made. Just this week, we had a meeting here in Tifton where various state and federal agencies met and had a conference here, bringing growers in to talk about the disaster assistance and programs that each of these agencies have or will be offering, hopefully, to help farmers out. But we had that meeting just this week.
Great. All right. Well, Don, we are running out of time here. Don't want to take any more of your time because I know you're a busy person at this point. But we certainly appreciate you joining us for this episode and explaining some of the thought processes that growers should be considering as we move closer to that December 7th deadline.
Jim, again, thank you for the opportunity. It's always an honor to do it.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir.
We'll be right back with the Cotton Companion right after this.
Okay, so once again, we want to thank Dr. Shirley for all he does for us and for always being an advocate for Georgia, for the Southeast, and for American cotton farmers in general. Now, we want to keep things rolling. We want to move along to our one big thing. This episode's one big thing we want to talk about is crop progress. We know that that's what you guys are doing out there, the pragmatic business of getting this crop in. So, Jim, can you tell us where we're at in terms of getting this crop into the gin across the country?
Sure can. As we all know, USDA issues their crop progress report on Monday afternoons, and it's all based on the week ending on the Sunday preceding that Monday. So this will be from the crop progress report for the week ending October 21st. And when you compare it to some of the reports for the last couple of weeks, simply because of delays in harvest and other activities, the numbers really haven't changed that much. For this report, open bowls now reported in 88% of the U.S. crop, which is pretty much on target for this point in the year. 39% of total acres had been harvested. That was up 7% in the past week and is still running ahead of the 5-year average. The real story, I think, comes from the crop condition report for this week, and I think this is what a lot of growers and a lot of people in the industry are watching at this point. We really kind of had a three-way split, and it's very interesting how the math worked out on it. Cotton that was rated good to excellent, basically was 34% of the crop was rated, in the top tiers. 33% of the crop was rated fair, and 33% of the crop was rated poor to very poor. And maybe some of the encouraging numbers on this is when you look at where the problems have been or where the hurricanes have come in and other weather issues. As of October 21st, Georgia was rated 49% poor to very poor, which actually was an improvement of about 5% from the week before. So again, it's based on actually getting out and seeing the level of the damage and seeing what's still salvageable. We'll watch those numbers again as they come in over the next couple of weeks, just to see if they remain steady, if they rise. But basically, we're looking at the crop. You can break it in thirds in terms of how it's rated. Is it's good to excellent, fair, or poor to very poor? And it's the first time I can recall seeing that kind of breakout on these reports as long as I've been looking at them.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly good news that some of the initial damage estimates coming out of the southeast, particularly southwest Georgia, that's getting a little upgraded now as people are getting a better look and able to survey. So we hope that trend continues. Well, all right. That will just about do it for this installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to thank Dr. Shirley once again for his time. He is certainly somebody who cares about his farmers, and we appreciate all of his efforts. Once again, we want to thank Phytogen, our sponsor, for sponsoring this episode. And we thank you, dear listener, sincerely for joining us as always. If you like what you're hearing, by all means, tell your farmer buddies about this podcast. You can tell them that they can get to us in one of three easy ways. The first being go to cottongrower.com and adding a /companion there in the URL such that it reads cottongrower.com/companion. That will take you to a landing page that houses all 33 previous episodes and this one, so there's 34 total, where you can listen to any number of topics that we've discussed, anything under the sun in the cotton world. The second easy way to make sure you're catching every episode of the Cotton Companion podcast is to subscribe to our channel on iTunes. If you're familiar with iTunes, you got an Apple smartphone, just go ahead, go into your podcast app and type in Cotton Companion there in the search bar. Subscribe to our channel, leave us a rating, let us know what you think of our pod. We love getting feedback from you guys who are out there in the field. The third and final and maybe best way to be sure you're receiving each installment of the Cotton Companion podcast is to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. Jim here works hard to pack that thing slap full with all the relevant news of the day each week, and it hits your email inboxes like clockwork every Tuesday mornings. Occasionally you might see it on Thursdays as well. You can sign up for the Cotton Grower e-newsletter by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe, and there's very intuitive sort of pathway to lead you to subscribing to the e-newsletter. Also, make sure you're following us on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by simply searching for Cotton Grower Magazine. We hope that you are enjoying our latest issue, which is still, to this point, the October product guide. A lot of good partners of Cotton Grower Magazine in that book, as well as folks who have very useful and good products for it. It's the October product guide. You'll find good products in it. So give that thing a look. The November issue is due in your mailboxes here in a couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Phytogen. This podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch, who works at the mothership Meister Media Worldwide in beautiful Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Mr. Jim Steadman, we wish you and your operation all the best.
Phytogen thanks you for listening to this edition of the Cotton Companion. To learn how you can thrive with Phytogen, go to phytogen.com.